Hopefully this thing will last. I'm Roger Burdette, District 2 Commissioner, this year Vice Chairman for the Board of Commissioners. And I want to welcome everybody out here tonight. Really appreciate everybody being out here tonight. That means you care, and that makes us want to care even more. And we appreciate everybody being here. I'm not going to speak a lot. I met with Tim earlier this week, and man, he's got a wonderful presentation. It has a lot of information, and that's why we do these things. This is my fourth one. I did a special one last year, did a regular one last year, did one when I was in office to begin with. I just feel like they're super important to get out there and speak with you all and let you know what's going on, not only in District 2, but also in the other districts as well. I appreciate the commissioners, Floyd and Kiefer, here being here tonight to support me, and if you have questions they might want to answer as well, welcome to. Main thing is just communication. We want to get that out to you guys. We're continually working on our public communications. We're getting the information out where it can easily be seen. Got some work to do still. 2 years ago, we put Mr. Mark Lestinger on board with us, finding ways to get more and more communication out to you so you've got some continuous flow, not just somebody, hey, we need to put that out once in a while, but we came a long way, but we realized we've got a little ways to go. So we're committed to doing that. We're going to continue to do that. Because it's just the beginning. It's going to be getting better all the time. One reason why I like doing this way and having Tim do this is I'm a data person. I love data. It's one thing to be up here and tell you one thing and you wonder, well, where did that come from? Well, it should be data-based. We should be able to back up what we tell you. And I think Tim tonight will be able to do that in a great way and inform everybody. So again, appreciate you being here. I wanted to make a quick mention on taxes. I know just a couple of little hot buttons that people have quite often. Our board has not raised property taxes for several years now. We've actually been rolling back the property millage rates. The past year, I think we rolled it back to the point where a lot of people's bills actually went down, even though values are going up. If you look on your bills, a lot of the times when the values are going up, your costs are going to go up. So we've been rolling millage back, so the impact is not that hard on you. And one big thing he's going to point out is we're doing that even though we've got massive inflation and we've got a lot more costs in the county. So as these costs rise, we're not trying to impact our constituents. We're trying to do it through good management, good county management. So how we're able to do that, one way is T-SPLOST. T-SPLOST was a big help. If there's any tax that I don't mind paying, and I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else, is T-SPLOST. There's two main reasons. I love it because everybody pays that sales tax that comes through our county. If they're here just visiting, if they're just going through, if they're working, and they buy something here, they're contributing to our roads. So it's not just property owners and people that live here, but everybody that comes through here contributes to T-SPLOST. I love that. The second reason why I love it is you can only use it for roads and infrastructure. You can't bring that in and have it earmarked that for something else later. It's got to go for roads and infrastructure. So I love that tax. It's a penny. You don't really notice it, but it has a massive impact on what we're able to do in this county, and especially District 2. And also in industrial and commercial businesses, Tim's going to go into that in depth. Their contributions make a huge difference in our county's tax income, as you'll see. Another thing we get asked a lot about is traffic and trucks on the road. Who loves the traffic in Effingham County? I don't see any hands. I don't either. But as Commissioner Floyd pointed out during the D1 presentation that he did, it only happens a short period of time. But during that short period of time, it's tough. Like I get on the road at 9:30 and go just about anywhere. But if I get on the road at 8, man, I'm not going anywhere. So we're working on that. We've got a lot of plans, and he's going to go over some of that. But they include trucks off of Hodgeville. That's another big thing. They include roundabouts, new roads, Parkway. Last time I looked online for the Parkway, we're still slated for 2025 of September. That's going to be huge for us. We're going to have another complete way out of here. You're shaking your head, but I think it will. You don't think it will?
Because as far as an S-curve ends in the roundabout, it's still got to go back to 21.
But that's the thing.
We don't have access.
We will. We're going to have access all the way to Junior Lodge. So it'll be two true ways, and we speak with the state representatives about it. It will, but it will connect, but I'll be the same way. I questioned it for the last couple of years. You know, this isn't gonna do us much good if you put it right back on 21, but it will continue, and even trucks are gonna be able to go Jimmy DeLoach. So it's coming, definitely coming, because otherwise we wouldn't have that impact that we're looking for.
How would you do?
You definitely do. I mean, and I ask the question every time we're at Effingham County Day in Atlanta. That's one of my questions. You can ask Tim. I'll probably bug him like crazy. Hey, I'm ready to see some ground being broken here, but they assure us that that's going to happen. Trucks on the road, to get a lot of that. We're working on a plan right now so we can get the trucks on Hodgeville. Hodgeville's kind of became a truck route per se, and the reason being is there's just nowhere else for them to go right now. When we get the parkway open, we've got a plan, and we're working on that now. I don't think we can divulge too much about it, to get every one of those concrete trucks that have the pipe off of Hodgeville and off of Goshen, to where they'll only be allowed on the parkway. So it's going to take a little bit of work, but I think it's something we can do. I think it's something a lot of people are concerned about. Roundabouts, got plenty of those coming. Recreation, the last thing I mentioned, the Atlas project. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to take a look at that. This beautiful project over in Commissioner Floyd's district, but not too far for us either. 180 acre lake, I believe it is. We've been working on that for literally years. A lot to go through to get stuff like that done, but we got some great plans for that place, as well as some others. We haven't given up looking for new places to put places in District 2 for more recreation. We're always have our ears open for that, working on another small deal that we can maybe have another small park. Love to have that on this end. We've got a large concentration of people here, so we want more to do. We're always looking at green space as well, so we can have that walking trail type atmosphere, and green space and parks for our kids and grandkids. But without further ado, I'll turn it over to Tim, and I just really appreciate it. I'll be around afterwards if you have any specific questions for me. If you would, give him a chance to get through, because I think he'll answer a lot of questions. And the presentation is great, and the data is great, so thank y'all.
Okay, thank you. If you've been to any of these town halls, you'll notice that some of this information is repetitive, but it's good information to have. We're going to do these in every single district, so you'll see some repetitive information, but you'll see information specific to this district as well. And so the first batch of information that we go through really has to do with growth. It really has to do with how we finance some infrastructure improvements for the county. So if you look at our growth rate in the county, and this is it for the last basically 15 years. Yes, it's been going up, but one thing I want you to take a look here is that it's been growing at the same rate for almost 15 years, right? There's this kind of perception that we're growing much faster now than we have before, but the numbers don't match that. We've been growing between 1,800 and about 2,300 residents per year. And so the problem is that we had, which is one of the reasons why we've got a little bit backed up in infrastructure improvements, has to do with revenues. Your revenues should kind of hug that growth line. These are the revenues, the property tax that the county charges through that period of time. And you can see that on an inflation-adjusted rate basis, they actually went down while our population was going up. So what that meant is that, and considering a lot of this chunk was during a time period where we were in a recession or recovering from a recession, the last thing the board was going to do was raise millage rates in order to make up for that revenue loss. So it meant we had to defer maintenance on stuff, and we had to tighten our belts and figure out more efficient ways to do things. But eventually, when you have deferred maintenance, you've got to catch up, and that's what we've been trying to do. So if you go back on that one slide, if we could, you'll see it literally, while everyone else might have recovered from the recession, in 2015, somewhere around there, for our revenues just to get back to where they were in 2009 before, it took to 2020. And so, and then when you compare that to that original gross, the growth line that we had on the next slide, you'll see that, you know, we're just catching up now, but we've got to make up for all this maintenance that we didn't do in those back years. And we don't necessarily need to catch up with that growth number, and the reason is because we've got an alternative source of revenue to handle infrastructure, and that of course is T-spots. So the point of bringing all this up is one of the big questions: how did our infrastructure get in this condition? And it really was because we were in pretty dire times financially, and now we've really fought our way out of it. One way was through T-spots. The other way is we realized that there's inherent danger in relying too much of your property tax revenue on single-family homes, and so we had to balance that digest a little bit better in order to make up for that. So if you go to the next slide, one thing I also wanted to bring up is, and Commissioner Burdette brought this up, is that as property values go up, right, we've been rolling back our millage rate so that you're not simply paying more in property taxes. And keep in mind, this is for the county M&O. This is the area of the property tax bill that we control. We don't control the schools, we don't control the IDA. This is the part that we control. We've been rolling it back for at least the past 3 or 4 years. Last year, we actually doubled the required rollback. So it was a rollback and then a tax cut. And if you look at where we stand amongst all of our neighbors, Effingham County, when it comes to the property tax that we control, we are the lowest. Next up is Bryan. We're at 5.93 mils. Bryan's at about 6.65. Go all the way out to Liberty, which is at practically 18. So we try and do very good without trying to raise your prices. And then the next slide goes to another question we have, and this goes to that issue of your assessments on your property tax bill. I am not the property assessor. It is a separate office run by a separate board, but this is a question we get, and so I wanted to address it for you. So you tend to think that these numbers that they're putting on your assessment bill every year is just some kind of random number that nobody ever checks, but they're audited every single year. And so if the assessor is more than 4% off what the actual market price, and the way they do this is they'll take some actual home sales and then compare the home sale price to the price that's on that the property tax is assessed at. They'll compare the two, and if he is too high or too low by 4%, the county actually gets financially penalized by the state. This year, since I've been here, they've done a pretty good job, but this is the first year that we were penalized, and it was because we had underassessed the values, or they had underassessed the values by more than 4%. So I want to bring up that it's not random, these numbers, that they're tested, and he has to try and make them as accurate as possible, or there are negative consequences. Next slide. So then the other issue about growth is, how many homes that has the county improved in the last several years, 4 or 5 years, and I will say it's the number actually is 3,068, but I will say that number compared to our neighbors, that's Statesboro alone is almost double that, right? The city of Statesboro alone, not including the rest of Bullock County. Bryan County and Chatham County have developments approved with 11 and 15,000 homes in them apiece, and that's just one development. I know it seems like there's a lot of new homes and developments going up everywhere, but when we compare ourselves to where our neighbors are, we've been actually trying to come up with a sustainable number of growth as time goes on. So we're at 3,068. Of that, in District 2, it's about 1,200. And I wanted to bring that up because this is obviously the fastest growing area in the county. And so because of its proximity to Chatham County, this is the area that you see generally a little bit more growth. Next one. And so when you look at those 3,000 numbers, we think with those 3,000 and the time it takes to build a house, that this line is going to continue on its trend, 1,800 to 2,400 new residents a year. But that's still growth. And so when you look at how it's been affecting public safety, our 9/11 call volume is in a 2-year period of time is up about 65%. Our EMS calls for service, this is a little bit misleading. It only shows a 3.32, but you got to remember 2 years ago, we had, I think, a couple of those COVID variant spikes, Omicron and whatever the other one was, I forget, Delta. And so we saw some very high numbers 2 years ago, but even now, in a year that we didn't have a COVID spike, it's still higher, slightly. And fire calls, you're seeing in a 2-year period of time about a 20% increase. So when we talk about prioritizing the investments, using the best money, using the dollars the best we can, one way we're doing it is every time we see that a neighboring jurisdiction, right, is starting to take some of our sheriff's deputies, some of our EMS paramedics, from our firemen, 911 call takers, they're starting to take them away. We make sure we adjust as quickly as we can and address the pay issue that's causing that. Nearly all of these departments in this environment is at close to full employment, which is fantastic, because I don't know if you've seen the stories about neighboring jurisdictions, but there's mass vacancies. And so we've been doing very well to keep our positions filled. Can you go to the next one? And then recreation activities on more of the fun side is also seeing a huge increase, which is great. Spring baseball and softball this year was nearly 1,200 participants. It's up 37% from 2021. Lacrosse, which is relatively new for us, is up 16%. Volleyball, 26%. Volleyball, 207%. That's become, and that's partly because we opened a new gymnasium where we can actually house these. And then track, which is really, we were surprised, is really starting to pick up participants, 171 participants this year. And then in the gym as well, we started a pickleball program, and we're up to, that's brand new, we're up to 200 participants a week. So it's good to see folks using the facilities and coming out. And on the senior side, participation is just beating all expectations, and we're extremely happy because there was a big worry that post-COVID we would not recover with the numbers, but that's not the case at all. In 2022, and we're using 2022 in this one because 2021 we were pretty much closed down, we are up 42% in our senior center participation in programs, and we're looking to expand them as well. Bingo, senior center participation is up 75%. I just thought that was a pretty crazy number, so I threw it up there. But also, it's nice that you look that we're addressing facilities as well on a county-wide basis. It's not just simply for the school, they're going to be joint use. That the state and the school district, we are building a performing arts center and a conference center at the Career Academy campus. So when you talk about arts, when you talk about dance recitals and stuff like that we really need to get a little bit more involved in here, or in our offerings, that will help a great deal to do that. And I know I'm going fast simply because I have a lot of slides, so I'll try and slow myself down. But one of the things we're trying to do technology-wise in improving customer service is move as much as we can online for folks so that they don't have to take a half a day off to come up to our office to get a permit or to submit building plans, renew their business license. And so we've taken the first few steps. Our procurement process is now online, and now our building and permitting and licensing and code enforcement is also online. And we're going to be expanding our online presence substantially. One of the things I'm most excited about is the 311 system, and I know some of our cities have, or at least one of our cities has implemented this, but we're going to be doing it on a county, for the unincorporated area as well, but for countywide services, it'll be countywide. It's what's called a 311 service. Now, for the most part, yes, you could call 311 and you'll get an operator if it's during business hours. But it's for whatever the complaint is. Litter on the side of the road. You know, somebody's clearly parked parking their truck in front of a house and blocking the roads, or any sort of violation that's a quality of life issue, graffiti, you name it. You can call in on that, or if it's an issue that affects you personally. They didn't pick up my trash today. They didn't, or whatever the issue was. You saw one of our cars, one of the county vehicles, speeding or driving recklessly. You can essentially use this system by dialing 311. You can go on the website and log in. You can click on a map, show you where it is that you saw it, whether it's a pothole or trash on the side of the road. Put the complaint in, it'll immediately start a ticket that we will then respond to and let you know the status of, if you provide your contact information. You don't have to, particularly if it's a code enforcement complaint. Sometimes you want to do it anonymously, but just know you won't be able to track the process of that complaint. But the big way to do it is the app on the phone, and the app on the phone is just going to make it really easy to submit any of those complaints. It can take your geolocation and then stamp it right there, and immediately where we got the complaint, and then we'll respond accordingly. County website is getting a major revamp. Thank goodness, it's been a while. It's very dated. It also needs to add some updated features to it, and so that'll all be done hopefully by the end of this year, if not early next year. Next one. In the meantime, and we printed out some forms here for y'all to take with you, so you don't have to write this down. When you do have those issues, those complaints, a drainage issue, a pothole, no garbage pickup, code enforcement issue, right over here is the forms that show you who to contact on those issues. One thing that I'm particularly proud of is that we've really been aggressive in going outside for grants, right? So the more we can get from grant funds is the less we have to collect in property taxes to make up for it. So where the grant funds were particularly aggressive in offering them had been related to water and sewer, but they come to everything from the animal shelter to we're doing a street safety and bike, kind of a bike and pedestrian trail system master plan. We got a grant that paid for all of that. stormwater master plan, we got a grant to pay for all of that. So that's money that doesn't come out of the county's pocket. And we've been pretty successful. And next slide, and my assistant did this, so here we go. $54 million is what we got. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to shout, because $54 million is what we got. I think that's over the last 3.5 to 4 years. So that's, our annual budget for the county general fund is only about 40 or some odd million. So that's pretty substantial. The bulk of that is a wastewater treatment plant, which is getting funded through a state and federal grant. Next one. So this is the big question we get, you're approving all these industries to come in here, all these warehouses, et cetera. Why are you doing it? Because they're not paying their fair share. Well, I want to provide some numbers here to show that there's a reason, there's a basis that we're doing it, and they are paying substantial amounts in taxes. But I want to show an example that I got from the school district, and that is if the school district had to operate on rooftops alone, if we were a true bedroom community only, then their total expenses are $156 million a year just to run a school system. Of that, a third of it is paid for out of property taxes. A third of it is paid for out of the state, and a third paid federal. So their current millage rate is about 15 mils, right? We've got 22,313 houses, residences in this county. If you wanted to pay for that entire school bill just on rooftops, the average taxable value, this is the key figure, taxable value of a residence would have to be $385,000, right? At that millage rate, it's nowhere near that, right? It's the average taxable value of a house in Effingham County today is $213,000. Now you may say, well, I go on Realtor.com, I can't see anything that's less than, 300,000. I can't see anything that's less than 300,000. Well, you got to remember, taxable value is after all of those exemptions. Like Carter Burns, your property taxes may have, double. Your property value may have doubled in the last 3 years, but you can only be taxed as if it went up 9%, 3% a year. So a lot of this keeps the taxable value down. So if the average price of the home is $213,000, that would have created, and then we were relying on homes only, that would have created a $20 million shortfall, right, for the school district alone, and they would have to raise millage by another 12 mils, or nearly double it. So how do we make up for that gap without having to tax people out of their homes? And that is, we balance the digest a little bit better than we've been doing. And when I say that, if you go to the next slide, you do that by putting more than just homes on the books. You do that by commercial and industrial. And if you look at the industrial growth that we've had over just the last 4 years, right, and that doesn't include this year, it's increased the property tax that the schools that get on an annual basis by $6.6 million, which is substantial, right? And then it's also increased, what the county can bring in by about $3.5 million. So which is why we can afford, even though we've had to deal with the same inflation pressures that all of you have had to deal with, that's why we can reduce our millage on an annual basis to roll back, is because we have revenue sources outside of single family homes. If you try to make up for that dollar amount in building single family homes, you'd have to build 5,100 homes. And all of those homes would essentially require more in services than they're probably paying out in property taxes if they're coming in and putting 3 kids in schools. So it's I get it. Not everybody wants to see the the amount of warehouses that are going here, but you know, we do limit where they go. We don't scatter shot them all over the county, and I'll show you that in a map in a second. But I do want to point out that in addition to paying that $6.6 billion to the school district, or $3.5 million, last year, since those, we tend to put those warehouses in kind of a condensed area, you know, generally determined by things like proximity to the port, access to rail, or access to the interstate. So on I-16, that Omnitrax thing that's not too far from here, that the IDA developed, and by Old Augusta, we've implemented a tax on them of an additional 1.1 mil per year to pay for any infrastructure that is required to support them in those areas. So that's just an additional tax that the industries are paying in addition to the tax rate that you're paying. Future land use map, and I just wanted to point this out that to show that we are trying to keep these in a certain area. Can heat control out? Okay. So if you see the purple areas on the map, and this is what I wanted to bring up, these are the industrial areas of the county, and we are. The board has been very good at not going outside of these areas. This is where we project the future growth to be in the county. And so you have the area down by I-16 in the lower corner. In the middle, right by here, is where that, right across from Belmont Glen, is where the Savannah Gateway Industrial Hub is. You can see the two railroads that go through it. The third is off of 21, right at the border of Port Wentworth. And the fourth, which we call it kind of the legacy area, that is where you'll find Georgia Power and Georgia Pacific. So we, you know, the goal of the board is so that does not spread beyond those purple areas, that they are limited to there. Can we go back to the slides? So that's kind of my background. This is kind of the fun stuff that's a lot of work that I spend most of my day on, is getting these capital projects on track and done. They're not getting done as fast as I like, as they're not getting done as fast as you would like, but there's a lot of stuff in the works. And what I'm going to show you now is stuff that's actually in process as we are right now. We're going to start off with roads. And so these are kind of your major corridor plans that the county is working on. So a lot of these were not built as major corridors, right? Their roads are very narrow. They're not the wide lanes that you'd find on a state maintained road. And they also don't include those center two-way left turn lanes or deceleration lanes or acceleration lanes. So for all of these roads, Goshen Road widening, there will be a third lane pretty much the entire direction, other than across where it crosses the railroad tracks, to speed traffic along those roads, in addition to widening the lane width from 10 feet to 12 feet. The Effingham Parkway, you know about, it's under construction now. Low ground road improvements, this is an expensive one, and so we know that would be the road's in rough shape, but it goes nearly across the county, or across the center of the county. The problem is it's an ash road. It is a ash road with a chip seal on top of it. The right-of-way is a little narrow, so in T-Splosh, we're going to make that into a fully functional road. Nice wide lanes, asphalt pavement. We're going to again, that is for vehicular traffic, not truck traffic. Blue Jay Road, that is the county's, goes all the way from 21 to Sand Hill. So that is the major east-west corridor for the county. It needs a lot of work, not just in the condition of the road, but again, dealing with all those things that I just mentioned before. Lane widths, left turn lanes, right turn lanes. Even, we're gonna buy enough right-of-way on all of these roads so that if at a latter point, the county wanted to put a separated pedestrian trail, we would have the space to do it. But we're taking care of buying that right-of-way now. And then what we awarded, not two meetings ago, was the Hodgeville Road improvements, and that's a repaving, but also for the areas that again are too narrow, we're gonna widen them. And then in two intersections there, at Scuffletown and at Forest Haven, we're just gonna do some lane improvements, left turn lanes, acceleration lanes, etc. On those. But that doesn't include what else we have planned for Hodgeville, which are the roundabouts. And the struggle that Hodgeville has, right, is that if you're on Callanan, right, or if you're on Goshen Road, trying to get out onto Hodgeville during a busy time of day is nearly impossible. So what the roundabouts do is they assist those side roads to add for a kind of a smoother transition of traffic, so everybody gets a turn to get out and speed things up. On the Blue Jay, it's the opposite, where Hodgeville can't get out onto Blue Jay Road, and it backs up, sometimes a mile down the road. So in that case, we're also putting a roundabout there, so that the Blue Jay folks can get out, on that road as well. The additional ones we're working on, probably the next one after that will be Blue Jay and Midland. And then we've got some that are related to state routes. Those, because of GDOT's involvement and their requirements, they're gonna take a little bit longer, but we've got the preliminary designs on that. The first one you will probably see is Collicomie and 30 right down the road from here. And that's already in the queue with GDOT for design. And so, but there'll also be one obviously on the other end of Collicomie and Hodgeville for traffic going to this school. And then, of course, we've got 3 roundabouts on Effingham Parkway as well.
Can you explain the difference between in design and in concept?
Yeah, so in design, if you look at concept, when they're on the ones that have to do with state routes, right? So before we can even start a design, GDOT has to approve just the concept of it to make sure that it's located where you are, their angles are correct, the very simple portions of it, and then it can go out to the full engineering, utility locations, right-of-way acquisition, and all that.
So the in design ones are approved.
The in-design one, the concept's been approved, and it's moving forward, and in some cases, like the top 3, we're in the right-of-way acquisition of it, and it should be, those top 3, we're hoping by the end of the year, we'll have under contract for construction. And we made sure that no roads will be shut down during these construction. That was, Hodgeville is too much of an important corridor where we can't afford to shut it down and detour traffic at any time. So, but in addition to the ones that we're doing, GDOT is also doing some on their roads, and all of these are in design. And I'll say the ones that are probably farthest along is SR 30 in Hodgeville. Of course, that's not in Effingham County, but it affects Effingham County probably more than any of these other roundabouts that I just showed you. And then Sand Hill and 80 are probably the 2 farthest along, but they're also got one at Chavez Jones in 17 and Marlowe Road in 17 as well, under design. Yeah, you really can't see this very well, but if you look at these, all of these dots here, I just wanted to try and get you to have a concept of the amount of roundabouts that we're currently into design. Roundabouts are generally very complicated to design, but once you get them in, they're a heck of a lot more efficient than four-way stops or traffic lights. So those are all the ones that are in some point that I just mentioned on the previous one. SR 30 and Hodgeville, we actually got a rendering from GDOT on that, just so you all know that it's actually a real thing. It's not just GDOT talking, but that is the roundabout design, and they somehow managed to do it without having to take out either of the gas stations. They just kind of pushed it a little bit farther south. So that's in full out design right now. Yes, sir.
Is that the new development that's going in Chatham County there, on this bottom portion to the left?
Yes. That's the Fort Wentworth development. Correct.
Right there at the roundabout across from the old swamp park.
That's right.
Like 400 something, 500 houses, something like that?
Apartments. Yeah.
Apartments even better.
It's Fort Wentworth, so I'm not really sure the extent of it, but they did tell me that there were some sort of apartments going back there, and I don't even know what's going on that side. So, but can you go next one? And then T-SPLOST, which was approved last November. We're moving ahead with the resurfacing now, and so the spring list, we're doing them by district, so we're doing all of District 1, some of District 2, and then in the summer we will have the remaining, or most of the remaining District 2, and then some of District 5, because they're right next to each other.
Are those chip and seal, re-chip and seal?
Nope.
Or are those really pavement?
Those are real pavements, right. So, so if you, all of that's we're gonna award the contract at the next meeting, and we'll be done, late spring, early summer. And then these are the other ones that were on the list of T-SPLOST. I can say Blue Jay, as I mentioned before, is a complicated road. It's gonna require a lot of right-of-way. Go ahead.
Back up to that Hereford Capital, is that repaved, is that gonna be paved all the way through, or is it gonna be like it is now, where it's just house?
That I'm gonna have to get you the details on. I do have the how much of it's gonna be paved.
It's dirt pattern.
Yeah, I don't think it's going all the way through, but for the portion, I think we're just simply surfacing the portion that's paved. Can you go to the next one? And so Blue Jay's complicated. So I would imagine this summer you'll see Crystal Drive, Golden Drive, Goshen Hills, basically the entire neighborhood. McCall Road, that's going to require some additional right-of-way. So I think that one will probably be early next year. And Westwood Heights, and we'll get that to the next few slides. Westwood Heights, we're just simply waiting for, they're finishing the design and they're going to have the construction plans for the stormwater improvements. And so we want to get the stormwater improvements done first, and then we're going to repave the whole neighborhood. Midland Road, it's in pretty good shape right now, but this is a 5-year T-SPLOST, so we wanted to put that on there so, you know, towards the end, we'll have funds if Midland Road, because of the amount of traffic, gets deteriorated. And then you can see, these are the additional roundabouts that we've got, that we're looking at that weren't on the previous list. Blanford and McCall, so we're doing a kind of a realignment of McCall. We're planning on doing a realignment. It's going to require some right-of-way so that you don't have to have such a tight turn by the railroad tracks. We're going to try and move that a little bit towards Lincoln so that school buses can make the turn and put a roundabout there so that traffic doesn't back up down McCall. Blue Jay and McCall, that's where we put the three-way stop in. Three-way stop works now, good, but once you open up Effingham Parkway, the traffic volume, our predictions are that that intersection is going to start to fail and back up. So our plan is to replace the three-way stop with a roundabout. And Hodgeville Road and Gateway, which, do we have the map on the next one? I don't even know, but I'll show it to you on a later map. There's gonna be a road that goes basically right across from where Belmont Glen is, all the way across to McCall. And it'll be able to connect you also to Effingham Parkway from Hodgeville. So our goal is the county is looking at options to front that development of that road. It's the industrial developer's responsibility, but we're gonna figure out a reimbursement mechanism for us to get that road done because it benefits residents more than it does the industrial folks in there. So, but we will get our money back as that development continues. And so there's a few things on here, and then I'll show you a map of this. One of the things that we want is just to have a better look, particularly on our commercial corridors. And so there are about 3 or 4 of them that we've kind of designated in the county. One of them is on 21, right when you come across from Port Wentworth, and all the way to where Rincon begins. Another one is that kind of from Goshen to Blue Jay, essentially on the Effingham Parkway. And then the others for a section of Hodgeville, so that if businesses go in that small section, there's design standards so that, you know, it has a more aesthetic, pleasable landscape, bike trails, lighting, you know, the look than a kind of a strip mall, which we're trying to avoid. So the idea is to put these standards in advance, so that as new developments come in, they have to meet these obligations. So we're coming up with those standards now. Here's a quick picture of a kind of a more simple one. This would be like a 21 crossing by Port Wentworth. You know, where essentially you're going to have kind of a nice landscape buffer, some lighting, potentially some sidewalks, probably some rather than string lights on the traffic lights, probably bar arm lights, you know, just to make it look generally better than you know, kind of strip mall highway. But here are the areas that we're talking about, and you can kind of see this is 21. This is that section. It starts about here. That's the section of Effingham Parkway. That blue property right there, where there's a roundabout on Goshen and Effingham Parkway, the hospital purchased that, and they plan on putting some sort of medical facility there. And so our thought is to have, since it's a new road, you can kind of create your own design standards. If it's going to go through this industrial park, just make it so that you're seeing trees and lights and not warehouses. And the warehouses aren't prominent on it. And on Hodgeville, you've got a mix of some commercial property that's already there, and of course you've got the residential property. And this is something that, you know, we want to present as kind of a concept to y'all. This is kind of not set in stone, nor do we have an agreement from the IDA on doing this. This purple, which is industrial, goes all the way to Hodgeville, right? And so this kind of light green, kind of the mustard in that square there, that's what's called a PD. It's already zoned that, so that they can do kind of a mixed use, you know, residential, could be townhouses, could be apartments or something like that. That zoning already exists, right? So the thought was that rather than having, you know, kind of warehouses, you know, even if you have a 300-foot buffer, they'll still be visible from Hodgeville, is to do something, you know, aesthetically pleasing with a combination of residential and some commercial. Something like, you know, the thought is something like a, you know, a Publix or something to that effect, because you do have property density there that can support its own supermarket. And the key thing is, if we get them to agree not to do industrial there, you know, that they agreed to make it, you know, make it a very high quality type of commercial residential look from the road. So that's kind of a thought. It's on the very early stages. We just figured that the residential area there would be a little bit more pleasing to have some nice commercial there than industrial. One other thing I want to point here, and I'm going to risk my life to do it. Roger mentioned this. This right here is where that concrete pipe company is, right? Their only access to a road right now is on Hodgeville, and it's a lot of trucks on a daily basis going in and out of there. Yeah, 70 on a daily basis, probably at least. And then there's actually a concrete facility behind it as well. So our goal is to work with some of these developers to cut off their entrance here, and they tentatively agreed they'd be okay with this, and then have them exit right onto Effingham Parkway and get all that traffic off of Hodgeville. It's complicated because we got to get these property owners to agree. The county's going to have to contribute some towards that road, but we figure it's well worth it if that's what it takes to get those trucks off of Goshen and off of Hodgeville. But it's on the radar in the works and communication. Yes, sir.
Parkway is still a 2-lane road?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so that's all, and so you know, the reason we did that is that's what we can afford, and we needed to get that road in. We did purchase enough right-of-way to eventually 4-lane it, but we felt it was important to get the road started and finished rather than try and wait to save up the funds to get the other 2 lanes. So that was the basis behind that. Yes, sir.
When you talk about parkways, are those gonna be limited access parkways so we don't?
Yes.
Stoplights at every?
Yes, sir. And there's, and our plan is not to have a stoplight anywhere on it, right? So it will start off on Blue Jay with a roundabout. Your next stop will be at that blue line right there, which is Gateway Parkway, which is another roundabout. Next stop is Goshen roundabout, and then your next stop from there is Highway 30.
So let's just take the hospital. The lot that they purchased there, they're gonna come and try to have them access.
They'll have a roundabout there, so you can actually leave, go out the wrong direction, hit the roundabout, turn around, and go the direction you need to go. And so the goal is with the limited access, even though it's a 2-lane road, it's our access rules are to treat it like a 4-lane road, so that every other exit will have a right out only. They may have a left in with a turn lane, but the last thing we want folks to do is to come out from the side, make a left, block the traffic in order to get there. So the goal is to get them out, get them on a right turn, they'll hit a roundabout, turn around, get the direction they want to go. Just to speed things up. Yes, sir.
Gateway Parkway there is on the neck, Gulf Road over to Clarksville.
Yes, sir.
Is there gonna be a limit on truck traffic coming to Hodgeville?
Yes, absolutely. And so one of the goals of Effingham Parkway, right, is to stop. Right now, trucks have the ability, particularly, let's say, going out here, that if they need to get to a state route like 17, they have to go on a local road to get there, right? So the goal of that Gateway Parkway is that if you're a truck, you're getting on, and you need to go north and south, you're getting on Effingham Parkway, and not on. You have no basis under GDOT state law or the county truck ordinance to be on Hodgeville. Right now, they have a basis to be on Hodgeville because it's our only north-south route to get to another state route. So it's a little complicated, which makes it very tough for the sheriff's, I almost said department, the sheriff's office to enforce. But once you start limiting start limiting those options and giving them other options to go on, then it's a lot easier for them to enforce and tell them there's no basis for you to be on this road, so therefore you get a ticket.
I would just say that nothing's gonna be busy, people will get more in.
Yeah, and it's gonna take, you know, one nice thing about truck drivers, they tend to get the word out fairly quickly. You know, our goal is to give trucks options to get them off the local roads. Can you go to the next one? Drainage improvements, and I mentioned this briefly, and both of these are in District 2. The first off, well, actually, I think Staffordshire might have moved to might be on the line, but we are currently we're finishing up the plan for Westwood Heights for all the drainage improvements that need to go in there. And so they've done all the models. I'm not a stormwater person, but they've done all the models. They've figured out all the flows and what's going to happen if a 10-year rain event occurs, and to make sure that they have adequate capacity to eliminate all the issues that Westwood Heights has. Once that's done, and so we anticipate to get that out of contract this year. I would be shocked if we didn't. Once that's done, as I mentioned before, then we're going to go in there and repave all the roads in there. So Staffordshire Estates, that has really been a little bit of a headache. But we've worked with the developer on that to come up with a solution to ease the overflowing of the ponds there, which basically causes the water to seep up through the roads. So we have a solution to that. Right now we're in right-of-way acquisition to get it fixed. Once we get it fixed, we will then again, the two roads back there, I think it's Aqueduct and one other one, we will resurface them as well. But we want to get the drainage fixed first. Next. Facilities, and I won't spend a lot of time on here, but a lot of it, if you go to the next one, a lot of it is based on public safety, our concentration. So, not quite this district, but close. We're putting a new combination fire, EMS, and sheriff's substation at the Barlow Fire Station location. And that'll be a manned firehouse, but right now it's just simply an EMS station. Because this is kind of where the growth is going out, so we got to have more coverage on this area of the county. Ebenezer Fire Station, when we took over we took that station over from Rankin when the county took over its district. It's all of its unincorporated area from Rankin. We're doing some renovations there. On Ledessi Ziegler, there's a fire station. We will be rebuilding that, just like the Hodgeville one. And then we were putting another station actually inside the city of Rankin, right on 9th Street and 21 to get better coverage. EMS is their headquarters, getting a training facility as well as more indoor parking. We are replacing finally all of the ambulances, and it's not because we weren't putting up the funds, we just couldn't get them. It's taken us years to get these, and we should have them all replaced by the end of the year. We are in design of a sheriff's training facility, which is kind of a building outside of his facility. He's got to go to Chatham County or other counties in order for them to do the training. So this way, not just the sheriff's department, but all the municipalities can also train in the county at a good state-of-the-art facility. Three other projects is Clarence Morgan Gym, and I'll just kind of show you those as the next slides. So that's kind of what the Ledessi Ziegler Fire Station is going to look like. Next one, this is the gym that exists at Clarence Morgan that we just built. Now we built it so we can expand it. So when the next splosh came along, we're doing something unique here. On the right side, we're moving all of our offices and operations for the recreation department to that facility, but we're also adding two community multi-purpose rooms for birthday parties. You can rent them out. You can combine them for one giant room, and then an outdoor facility as well. That also, that's adjacent to where the playground is. But on the left side, because of the facilities that are in that building already, showers, a large gymnasium, commercial kitchen, and the build quality that it was built, we are also adding our emergency operations center and our emergency management agency, the county emergency management agency offices to here as well. We've outgrown our existing one a very long time ago. When a storm comes, we have to limit who we can kind of invite to the operations center, and you really don't want to do that. You need to have your full staff in there when hurricanes come. So that we just awarded, and they're just about to start construction on it. Next one, this is, I'm not going to go into this detail, but I'm going to go into concept. So the county got a very good deal on its administration building because we bought it from a bank that was a victim of the Great Recession. And so we bought it at the right time before everything started escalating. The bank did lease it back, one story in one of the buildings for a while. They're now out. And so we're going to be expanding out the back of it, and we're going to be moving the tax assessor and tax commissioner to this facility so that we're not scattershot all over the place. When you need to get something done, whether you need to talk to the assessor, whether you need to pay your tax bill, get a vehicle tag, get a permit, get a septic permit, whatever it is, you're going to one facility to get there. Go to a commissioner's meeting as well. And so it also frees up space in the initial complex for the kind of large addition of caseloads that we're getting for the DA and the judges over there. So that's the administration building. And this last one, you can't really see a lot of detail here, but one thing we realized when we were looking at construction is new construction is just outrageously expensive. And the county had some buildings in its inventory that we could actually renovate. I don't know the full story of this, but somehow we inherited a former school. And this is the Central High School or Central Elementary School, preschool in Springfield. We are finishing up the plans on this. The orange area will be the new elections office. This is the gymnasium right here that exists. So you'll have a huge paved parking lot. The front orange building will be the early voting location, and that's where we're going to store all the elections equipment. And then the back orange is where elections offices will be located. And so early voting takes a much bigger role nowadays in our election process, and it will continue to grow. And so if you've ever had to deal with an early voting in our existing facility, you know the challenge. There's no parking. Then you got to park on 119 and climb up a hill. It's just not conducive to a good customer experience. So this will have adequate parking, and because of the way the school is designed, and outside of all these classrooms is kind of a covered walkway. You'll be out of the weather, lined up to vote, and just be a better experience. We're also moving our records retention and storage to this facility. Facilities and maintenance office will be moving here as well. And this purple area, which I can't say whether we'd be doing it on the first phase or not. It depends on where the numbers come in. But we've been asked about having the county having a kind of a larger community type center available for folks for events. That's the old cafeteria. It already has a commercial kitchen in it. So we'd be able to renovate that. Now, if you ever go out there, you have to have a vision for this property, because we're gonna make the exterior, we're gonna make the landscaping, the parking, everything's gonna look fantastic. And we're gonna be able to do it a lot less expensive than it would to be built in. So with that, small facility projects, I will say that we are looking for a library location, not just to replace the library in Rincon, but also someplace in South Effingham. And matter of fact, we're gonna try and start a design on that so that we can design one building that we can put at both locations. So the next time the SPLOST comes up in about 3 years, we'll already have the plans completed. We're doing a full renovation and expansion of the animal shelter. If you've ever had to deal with jury duty, you know how horrible the parking is at the judicial complex, so we're expanding the parking there. And where the old Effingham Academy was, where the library, Springfield Library is, we're gonna move a lot of our Health and Human Services, DFACS, and some of our other services to renovated facilities there as well. Parks, I save this one to last because this is the fun stuff and this is what I get excited about. But if you've been to CEM, you know that quality of that park is much higher than every other park that we have in the county, right? And so when we did McCall Park, we wanted to build that at that level, right? And so much smaller park, but we wanted the same quality level to be there. And so now with SPLOST, we're doing it for the rest of them. And so, but I'm gonna show you some pictures, but I do wanna say, we are actively looking for a location for a regional park in South Effingham. What's that? Good, I'll talk to you afterwards, so. Yeah. So but we are actively looking for a location for it, and our thought is we can trade one campus and also put a library there as well, and any sort of services for the southern end of the county. But I'm gonna go through the parks. Some of them are pretty cool. This is Pinora, and so that's the existing footprint of the baseball fields. We're gonna upgrade the lighting out there to make it conducive with the lighting that we have at the 119 Park and at Clarence Morgan. We're gonna replace the playground. We're gonna replace the playgrounds at every park. A little bigger, but if you've been to McCall Park, you know it's kind of a similar quality to that. We're gonna use the more expensive matting and a little bit more dynamic equipment, paved parking throughout, updating bathrooms. But the cool thing is you've got this entire trail system that already exists there. But we will be putting a disc golf course there through the woods, and that is actually already under design right now. Next up, this is Baker Park. This is actually towards the end of design right now. We've just got a little bit of a right-of-way issue that we got to purchase some land on. The surprising thing about Baker Park when we did our study was it was our second most popular park when we did the surveys, when we did our recreation master plan. And the part of that had to do with, we also asked what folks wanted the most in a new park. We thought it would be baseball or some sort of kid sport. No, it was walking trails by a pretty good margin. So we're redoing the walking trail here. The tennis courts have already been redone. We're redoing the bathroom. We're redoing the playground. And then beyond the tennis courts, there'll be a back parking area with a dog park and 4 pickleball courts. And then Clarence Morgan, this is the kind of the phase 2. The kind of shaded parts would already exist, and you can kind of see the gym with the little orange areas or the expansion. Now this is what it would look like if it was completely built out. This is not everything we're going to be able to do in phase 2. But the biggest need we have right now are multi-purpose fields, which are the fields on the bottom, the soccer, football, lacrosse, and I believe we're trying to make 2 of those as turf fields, and then the rest of them natural turf fields, 2 artificial turf the remainder of natural turf. We're gonna try and get this mini quad or mini triple of T-ball fields in there, and a dog park, and the entrance that connects to Ralph Ron as well. Because we have tournaments in there, we're also, if we can afford it, we're also looking at some RV parking in there. And just in the back corner there by the pond, we know people have been asking for a swimming facility. They're extremely expensive, and we've got limited resources, so we're gonna start off with a splash pad right adjacent to where the playground is, including a walking trail that goes around the entire thing. So that's under design right now. This is a little interesting one because I would love to see this repeated throughout the county. A developer has agreed to deed us some land at the front of his development on Highway 30. This is if you're coming from here, just past Zitrower to the right. And so we thought that McCall was so successful, and the areas that get the most use at McCall Park are the areas that take the least amount of land. So the idea is to come up with a pocket park concept, and here it's a very limited piece of land, but you're able to get a full dog park, small and big dogs, a large playground, a restroom facility, 2 pickleball courts, a basketball court, and a walking trail around. And so this was the first concept we've got on it. Now we're just looking at going into design. And this is something also exciting that was part of the T-Splost. So if you know where the bike trail is in Guyton, right? That is part of an abandoned rail corridor that goes all the way to Highway 80 and all the way to Oliver at the northern end of the county. And we're working with Georgia Power right now because when the railway went out of business, they deeded the property over to them to do a bike trail that goes from downtown Guyton to basically almost to 80. But the exciting thing about it is not just a paved bike trail, it has great stops along the way. I just showed you Pinora Park. This bike trail abuts Pinora Park. I didn't show you Sand Hill Recreation Center because that's going to be done after CEM, Clarence Morgan.
That's why.
Yeah, because in order to redo Sand Hill, we have to close the fields, right? So we don't have enough fields to close down any fields right now. So the idea is that we keep those fields open, we build Clarence Morgan, which will add about 10 fields. That'll give us enough capacity to shut down the fields at Sand Hill, the multi-purpose fields, to build them without disturbing any capacity that we
How
have.
many fields would be in Sand?
What's that?
How many multi-purpose fields in Sand Hill? Because the majority of your Savannah United players.
Yes.
Which is booming, are from this side of the county pretty rapidly.
Right, and so the goal is, just so you know, we'll have those extra fields so we can move them over to CEM while we rebuild those fields, and I just don't remember, but there's at least 4, maybe 5 multi-purpose fields that we're building there. Also, there'll be some pickleball courts and a few more basketball courts and stuff there. We'll be redoing all the lights and the playground. I think we're actually gonna do the playground first, since it's not moving, but that's the reason why we have to wait. There is spot that we put aside there for a gymnasium, and it just won't be in this initial phase. The thought is that we're gonna need, we know how popular the CEM gym is, so we're gonna need one on this side of the county. So we did put a space aside right next to the parking lot for the gymnasium, the size of the one in CEM.
We drive 35-40 minutes for every basketball game because all of the facilities are in Springfield.
I agree with you on that, and so we're actively trying to resolve that on this. We're just trying to work with the resources that we have, but we've got the plans to take care of it. And also that new big park that we're going to do in the south end, we get a big enough piece of land, we'll be able to put a gymnasium potentially there a little closer to the Sand Hill. But the Truly Trail, so going back to this, so it goes by Panora, goes by Sand Hill, but it also, and it starts in downtown Guyton, but it also goes by a new park that we've been, it's been painstaking getting the environmental approvals for this, but we're on the 5-yard line of it, is the Atlas Lake. And it's not gonna be called Atlas Lake, that's just what the site was called. So we'll come up with something a little more creative than that. But this is it kind of in the big picture, right? And just to show you where we are, that's 80, that's the bridge over the Ugichi. And here's Sand Hill. And so the entrance will be off of Sand Hill. Can we go to the next one? So that's that kind of zoomed in area where 80 is down here. This is where all the facilities will be here. And so the idea is to kind of start, you're kind of doing the boat launch over here, facilities. You can't really see it here, but where that dot is, we want to do an amphitheater that overlooks the water, so that the stage is at the edge of the water and then the seats kind of look down on it. And then this will have walking trails around the entire lake. And it's very tough to gauge it. A lot of folks are amazed this is even in Effingham County, but so we did we hired someone to do an overhead drone video of it. That's a picture of it. And just so, this is kind of an impounded area right here. And so the idea is this, we could potentially, the engineers or the architects told us you could put a swim area in this area, because it's kind of segregated from everything else, and so it would be much easier to maintain. And then the rest of it would just be for boating and fishing and walking trails. But I'll show you the video next. That's where all the facilities will be. That's kind of the swimming pool right there. That's the Hyundai manufacturer. So anyway, that's what I got. And the point I'm trying to make, and the reason the board wants us to do these more often and do these in every district, is it kind of gives this appearance like there's not a lot going on in the county, like we're not doing things to address the infrastructure needs of the county, but there's a lot going on. And within the next year or so, you're going to start seeing some real serious progress on roads and infrastructure and parks. But it's been just a challenge to kind of get there. Everything that I've shown you there, we've secured the funding for. So all of that's moving forward, plus some, because we didn't include all the T-SPOS projects. And it will put this up on the county webpage so you can all see it. The video is already up there. But again, that's my contact information, that's Roger's contact information. and you have any questions, just let me know. There were some questions that were submitted that I do want to address first, and then I'll take some questions from the audience. Okay, someone had asked, oh yeah, there are 2 abandoned houses on Hodgeville Road across from Southern Hills Plantation. Those properties are actually in an area that's going to be developed. They've already passed, it's already gone through the board, so that'll all get cleaned up when the development occurs. And someone had asked about private roads, and that when they purchase a home that's on a private road, and it's not county maintained, that they pay taxes, and you know, why don't they get the benefit of the county maintaining their roads like everybody else? Well, when we accepted the road, that is a road that's in the county system, you know, at least in the last 20 years, we require them to meet minimum standards, so that we're not taking on an immediate burden for the taxpayers. We require the developer to do it, and so we can't, taking on a road and then immediately rebuilding it, really wouldn't be fair to everybody else, that had to, that whose roads had to meet standards, in order for us to do it. However, we do have a process, where we're not gonna make you build a brand new road. You know, we can walk out there with you, do some, kind of tell you what the minimum standards you have to get up to in order for the county to take it over. Matter of fact, we're doing that with the neighborhood in District 1 right now. And someone had asked for a crosswalk across from Charlton and McCall. That's where Westwood Heights connects into the McCall Park. I will look into that, see it seems to make sense, but I just have to look into what the engineering and the safety aspects of that are, since that's a busy road, but it is something that I think would cause a lot more people to walk to the park rather than drive, and I know there's not a lot of parking in that location. Walking trails, Lincoln has a lot of walking trails and sidewalks associated with it. Is the county going to do that as well? Yes. That Troutman Trail is just the first part of this. The county, as I mentioned in a grant earlier, do have we're going through a planning process right now to come up with just a concept plan of what a trail system would look like going through the county. Westwood Heights, they were asking about the drainage improvements, and hopefully I addressed that for you. Someone had asked about pavement markings on the entrance of Westwood Heights.
That would be me.
Okay, so I've looked at that, and so now anything from the frontage road over is GDOT, right? And and we can help you get in front of the right person on that. Anything from the frontage road back would be us, and when we repave that entire neighborhood, we're gonna do all new signs, all new striping, and everything everywhere, so.
That would be lovely, but nobody wants to take responsibility for the part from frontage to 21.
Well, it is, if that's the case, I can have my engineer contact GDOT because it is clearly in their right of way.
Please, 'cause they're ignoring me.
Okay, will do. And then the last one, someone had mentioned about, and I don't even know where this is, that the county was trying to do a park in Lakeside. Anyone?
That was
No?
also me.
Okay, where's Lakeside? We don't know.
Yeah, that's a Falkville. I don't know the part, that's.
So
Are you talking about in Falkville?
Like,
Off of,
Roadland Road.
yeah, off of Roadway?
I don't know, y'all were touting it the last one.
Oh, okay. This is, well, I didn't ever knew that we were looking at a park there, but I can tell you, this one will be much bigger and much nicer. And those are the questions that were submitted, so if anyone has any questions, here, Roger and I are here, or unless Roger's got some too.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna conference, so I see, I don't know if you want to address it or not.
Yeah.
Well, Middle Road, I can talk a little bit about that one.
The what?
Middle Road.
the process, I can go over that.
Yeah, and I'll speak a little bit about it. The Middle Road project, I guess, is coming back up. I've looked at it already. It is a lower density than it was before. Nobody's voted on that yet, so really not a lot I can say about it until it comes up for vote.
Planning board denied it.
They did that? Okay.
Yeah.
I will say that, and I had some more questions along that address wetlands. We don't regulate the wetlands. That is a state type of thing.
The wetlands.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I submitted the question.
Oh, you did?
So my question in that picture, it was shared on our Zippo Road,
Yes, ma'am.
Facebook page. The picture of the, development shows this huge white area in the middle. So there's nothing there, there's nothing built there, it's all around the perimeter, like a moat. And that would be your roads and your retention ponds and your homes. So I understand that the middle is wetlands.
It
Is
is.
that correct? And so my question is the EPA involved in that? I mean, you know,
Well-
that supports an ecosystem.
Sure, and so, and I'll tell you, it's not a natural wetlands, it's a wetlands that was essentially created by when they used to do some surface mining there. And so, that's why they can't build anything in there. They can't build it up without spending an enormous amount of money. Yes, ma'am?
So it's not based on the ecosystem, it's just based from previous mining and what may be.
Well, what they're gonna look at on wetlands, is that if it's a designated wetlands, and even if it's not a, you know, it's a man-made kind of wetlands because of the, soil that was taken out of it, it's gotta be protected, or they have to mitigate it. And that's part of the reason I would guess that they're not doing anything in that middle area. And they're just doing that road that crosses it over so they can minimize the amount of wetlands that they're affecting. And they can't do anything to either block the flow of water either. So that whatever, the rate of water going on and off of that property has to remain the same regardless of what they put there. And so that's one of the reasons why, I'm assuming, I'm just trying to remember in my head, that I think there's a ton of ponds there, is because, if they're putting anything, surface streets, houses, or so on and so forth, they've got to make up for that, the amount of water, that used to be, absorbed by those areas by having the deeper ponds.
I believe that's the headwaters of Augustine Creek right there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you mentioned Staffordshire.
And I was at the meeting, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned Staffordshire and
Yeah.
those retention ponds.
Yes.
I mean, like, so potentially you have the same problem.
That's right, and so I will tell you.
Is somebody overseeing that from an environmental?
Yes, and so we learned a lot from Staffordshire.
Builder.
Yes, and, yeah, and so the Staffordshire, the problem was, and why we will make sure that it never happens again, is that they judged the, water table, based on the dry season, and they determined how they were gonna make the ponds. But when they dug it, it had kind of regulated itself, and they didn't dig the ponds, nor did we check to make sure that the ponds were deep enough, because they couldn't, because they were hitting the water table earlier. And so therefore, they didn't have enough capacity. So what they should have done is made the ponds bigger to make up for it, they didn't. And now they're having to go back in afterwards, and do that very thing, so to more capacity. So I can tell you that the team that we have, both in-house, and, in our own consultants, not the developers' consultants, are, vastly superior to what they were in the past.
So right now, just from last night, from this morning's rain,
Mhm.
that whole property and
Yep.
my property and.
Nearly every property in the
They're
county.
underwater.
Yeah, we are inundated right now, at the highest level I've ever seen.
Wait until they build up
Right.
the areas where they want to build houses, and they can see much ponds in there.
Hunter's Mill's gonna flood every time. Yeah.
That would be a good place for Effingham Water Park, right
Yeah.
there. And I'm sure Mr. Strickland, at the end of the pillow of the community his, would donate that land instead of building this silly
Or even,
subdivision in there.
or even the green space that you were talking about, you know, and not pack houses and roads and retention ponds and things like that, and create something out of that space.
Well, I mean,
You can't
again,
use the middle of it.
we don't own it, We imagine it's very expensive, to own it, and so when we go out and buy land for green space for the county, as a general rule, we're trying to find stuff that's under conservation easement, because it's not as expensive, and couldn't be built on. And so probably not very likely that we'd be able to build a park there, unless the owner wanted to donate it.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
nice.
yes, sir.
So the Crossroads Parkway, do you have a time frame on that, and are you gonna be able to get that to go into Richmond? Rather than just dead ending somewhere on the call?
And I'll tell you the reason why. Originally, they were thinking of doing that grade crossing, the Gateway Parkway, to get across to Rincon. But Rincon, understandably, because of the amount of trucks in that industrial area, just doesn't want to pour a lot of trucks onto 21. And so what would end up happening is we're trying to get them on the Parkway. They'd end up going to 21 and exasperating the
So the
situation.
second part of that, what's the time frame on that road? And then also, you're talking about the trucks going all the way down to Jimmy Loach. I know, right, I mean, I don't know where it's at now, but at one time, the city of Savannah basically told everybody to go pound salt, you're not bringing trucks.
Well, and so what we've been told over and over again, by the time Effingham Parkway is open, that issue will be resolved. And we were told that by the state, so, they have the authority to do it. So, I will tell you, the goal is to, try and open it when Effingham Parkway opens. Because that's when the developer is planning to, right now, it's kind of blocked right now by the roundabout by Blandford. But if you were to continue down there, you get just across, Norfolk Southern Railroad tracks. And so they're not to where Effingham Parkway is yet. And so our goal is to basically at least start it, have it started by the time Effingham Parkway opens, so that we can, the whole goal is to tie, get everybody on Belmont Glen and New Haven and Hodgeville a way to get onto Effingham Parkway without having to go all the way down to Goshen.
Well, I think the problem you're going into is you have this road, like a lot of the roads here, we go to nowhere, right? You run into a dead end. So you need to get these roads to town or out of the county, because every road here basically, Hodgeville Road's a dead end to nowhere. Callanan is a dead end road to nowhere. We have a lot of roads that just stop.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Blue Jay up Hodgeville, it stops. We need roads that go across the county where you can actually get from one end to the other.
And I will tell you, that's why we're investing so much money
I mean,
on
I
the
appreciate
limited
that.
east-west roads that we have, right? So the limited east-west roads that we have are Goshen. We're pouring money into widening that, doesn't go the full length. Blue Jay is the longest one that we've got. That'll go from all the way from 21 to Sand Hill. And we're gonna make sure that that's got capacity that can handle more traffic. But I will tell you, for vehicular traffic, don't look past what we're doing on low ground, because that'll be a road with no trucks on it. There's actually a surface mine there, but other than the surface mine traffic, there'll be no other trucks on it. That'll get you from McCall all the way. Our goal is, as you said, is to extend that all the way to 17. Right now it stops right about Midland. So it's to create more east-west opportunities. We agree with you that. We know.
All the developments in Rincon, and the only way you get to Rincon is either 9th Street or Goshen Road.
And that brings up another point. There is another entrance that we're looking at, and it's right by where you cross the railroad, on 21, in Rincon, on the south side. We're working with Rincon, we're doing the preliminary plans right now to have a road that kind of starts there and will connect, at first, at where McCall and Blandford come in. So it'll kind of, this is 21, it'll come all the way across and then kind of turn into Blandford. And then phase 2, we'll have it go all the way across to McCall via an overhead rail crossing, because the bridges obviously are very expensive. We're doing phase 1 to tie it into the existing road, phase 2 to get you kind of all the way across. Then that allows you to get to Blue Jay or low ground to get you the rest of the way. So there are some plans. Yes, sir.
Our Effingham Parkway, we're looking at, I know there's, just in this area right here, there's 3 or 4, not, counting probably the one that we talked about earlier, the Swamp Fox, that Chatham County putting in.
Mhm.
That's, all those cars are coming, all those cars will be coming. One on Midland Road they're wanting to do, there's one behind the new, wedding venue, that's gonna be a big development back there. There's another one further down, okay? All that is going down Highway 30, we're running into all this other traffic that we're funneling from the county on 21, and we're all gonna head at the roundabout.
At Blanford, not at Blanford, Ben Boulevard.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah.
So everybody from South Effingham, and we want to put these 500 unit subdivisions and apartments and townhouses, all that is funneling there. And we're funneling everything from the other end of the county down Parkway. So we're having a big clash right there.
And you kind of summed up the problem is that everybody works at the same place at the same time, right? And so if you've ever tried to go on that route on a Friday, it's usually clear sailing, right? Because of Gulf Stream, right? So one of the things, in the indirect ways we try to do that, try to fix that, is creating a employment center that is not Gulf Stream, right? Creating, the traffic going to Hyundai goes in a completely different direction. And so, that's, and I know it's kind of hard to imagine who's gonna quit their job just to, kind of go in a different direction. But, that's one of the ways you address it, is by trying to figure out, traffic pattern that doesn't go to the same place, every day. And it is frustrating
Why more
because.
people would be willing to sell their house in Effingham now and change the job with all this stuff that's going on?
Okay, I mean, I don't know, but we're trying to address it as best we can.
Have you ever looked at another corridor? I know years ago, God, I don't want this to happen, but years ago, they took, Millen Road, the county had, or state had it, they resurfaced it, and they were talking about cutting it through to, Jimmy the Loach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jimmy the Loach.
And I don't know.
And the wetlands on the far side.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Repaved, they went out there, this was 20-something years ago, they cut Midland Road down to dirt almost, where they grounded, built back up, put like 1.5 foot of asphalt on it, built it up, and then all that plan fell through because it was too expensive to go across the wetland.
Right.
And they ended up giving it back to the county, the county owns that road?
Middle Road?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean,
So,
state took
I can
over
tell
and did
you-
that, and then the county, give it back to the county on the resurface.
This is probably an answer you don't want to hear, but I can tell you what they're probably, and this is GDOT, what they'll probably do, before looking at another road to connect to Jimmy the Loach. They will probably be, widening, Benton Boulevard, so that, because as you get more south, you get more and more traffic, right? So it doesn't make sense to 4-lane the upper part yet, you got to 4-lane the lower part, right? So, my guess is they will be 4-laning that, all the way to Jimmy the Loach. And then, they will be, looking at, adding an additional lane all on 21. Those are probably the 2 areas that I think GDOT's going to address first. And those are pretty expensive. 21, the last figure, just the design of it was about $20 million. But I think, from my discussions when we go up to Atlanta and talk to GDOT, that's what I believe their focus is right now. That may not be the preferred Midland connection, but it is an issue about, addressing the capacity issues on getting to Jimmy the Loach and to Nondeposit.
They're planning on allowing trucks down Benton Boulevard, they're gonna 4-lane that. They got all those houses, apartments, and a school there.
That's what they tell us.
Okay, all right,
So,
fair enough.
Couple more questions here. Some of them about the schools,
yeah.
being at capacity.
Yeah, and I wish I had these numbers, and so we got some numbers, this is about school capacity. The school district, I can tell you, is, you know, they're planning capacity improvements. You know, it's amazing how quickly they can get, these, additions done to schools. So I know, they've got some additional, capacity, small capacity to grow, in this school. I do know that they've got capacity to expand, and they're looking at expanding South Effingham High. And I do know that, they purchased land, not far from, the Blue Jay McCall three-way stop, to build an elementary school. They are actively looking at capacity. My last conversation with the superintendent, they were looking at land, around the, you know, somewhere on, either Midland, because there is impossible to find anything, you know, to locate additional schools. So they are actively, planning, you know, years ahead, for the capacity that they know is coming.
Some of these are, is it Burdette?
District one?
Yeah, there are two.
Wait, no, that's Dipper Road.
That was listed on the page.
Oh, that was it, that's right, you're right, yeah, Dipper Road off of Midland.
Midland,
Yeah, so that's this late spring, early summer, repaving.
Asking about when the ditches are cut, when I'll check into that on Midland and some other places.
And let me tell you, please take that form with we're gonna make it easy for you to report this stuff, easier than we're doing right now. But a lot of times we don't know about the problems, and sometimes the first time we hear about it, is someone forwarding me something on Facebook where everybody's complaining about something, but we haven't gotten one phone call about it. So, and a lot of it has to do with that folks don't know who to call or where to call. And so, please take that information when you see something, I don't care what it is, pothole, litter on the side of the road, striping on roads, a sign that was driving here and I saw, you know, someone blew away a sign with a shotgun. Well, that's gonna be replaced. But no one called us on it. So, you know, so by all means, let us know about it. Because the only way we can address it is we get the call. Yes, ma'am?
I will say, we have gotten, some signage put up on Zipper Road very quickly after messaging, so
Right.
we do appreciate that.
Yeah, so, we don't know, we can't fix what we don't know about, so just let us know.
Getting back to the schools, I do want to say, every time we consider a new development, that's one of the questions that goes to the school board. Are we okay in this area? So we're always communicating with them. And they do stay on top of things pretty well. I think the last time I sat down with Yancy, this school in particular is probably one of the fewer schools that don't have a lot of room to grow. The other ones have some room left. But, they're always looking at ways to better our schools. They do a fantastic job. A few of these things are just, for me personally, I wanna look into. I'm gonna look more into the private road. I'm not sure if that person's here today.
Colbert Court,
Right.
anyone?
Yeah.
I'll talk to you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll talk to
See
you.
if we can come up with some solutions for that. I know we
Yes,
addressed it
please.
before, didn't really get anywhere. It's a complicated matter of legality and everything else. We should be able to figure out something. We'll do our best.
Yes, ma'am.
Question about private roads.
Yes.
Does the county have a minimum requirement for the people of private roads?
No, we don't have any requirements for roads that aren't ours, right? But, you know, if you wanna bring it to us, well, you just gotta bring it to, and have us take it over, you just gotta bring it to a minimum standard. And we'll take it. Okay, I just wanted, I got your question.
That's about it. Some of those things you addressed already. Gym, traffic.
I got another one.
All right.
So let's talk taxes. I know you guys are diligent with the budget and all that good stuff. You've rolled back the rate.
Yes, sir.
The problem that everyone that I talk to is now, with the exception of this past year, I did get a $30 decrease, which is amazing because in 15 years I haven't had one, at least where I'm at now. But what Carter Burns is supposed to do doesn't work, right? So they're constantly, raising our values, and therefore we're paying more year after year after year. I don't know if it's within your guys' purview, but something has to be done to protect the people here now. Just because someone from New York or wherever, no offense to somebody, they come here and they throw a bunch of money in property and it raises all of us, we're basically then getting taxed out of our homes essentially, right? I mean, I don't know, I can't be the only one, everyone I talk to says the same thing. And so just dealing with the Carter Burns, the way I understand it, basically the people, the commissioner's office have found a workaround. And she basically admitted this to me, that they're using the accessory value and only the base value to reduce your 3%. So they're going around you and you're going up. Cause I've had, in the past, just say the past 10 years, I've had years where I've gone up 12, 18%. And that their excuse and not excuse, but their explanation is that the 3% only applies to the base value of your property.
Right.
Anything else you have, so like I have a little bit of land and other stuff, those can continue to go up, we continue to raise them based on those rates. So you'll see maybe that 3% every year on your base value, but anything else they wanna get you on, they can go at it.
And let me just give you one correction on that, right? And there's a reason why we have the assessor, that it's a completely independent office with a completely independent board, from the Board of Commissioners, is so that it tries to take politics out of it, right? So it's not being run by, an elected official, and they do have very strict rules that they have to follow, when assessing properties. Now, if you own a large piece of property, I forget what it is, Carter Burns only protects a certain amount of acreage or something to that effect, and you're correct, it does it on the homestead, and the base acreage, and not on, accessories, that you have, like the swimming pool. Those swimming pools don't really go up that much, but I will say that that they've got a formula that they've got to abide by. I can say there is some relief that's not coming this year, it's coming next year, it was just passed, that they're increasing that homestead exemption. I think they're doubling it. And the other thing that they're doing is it's like a floating exemption, whereas, right now it's kind of, your exemption is kind of fixed, but it will float with inflation so that, so the amount that you're exempted on the property will increase as inflation increases. Two small things, but just know, it's not a way that anyone's trying to get around you. They have very strict rules that the assessor has to abide by, that they're not allowed to deviate from. But we can, I tried to give a little bit of explanation of what the assessor does in there, but I'm not, by no means an expert on what the assessor does. But I have sympathy for him, so. Because it's a tough job.
All these rentals are put in the county, apartments.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that space be better? If you had 5 acres, you had a house, and a big house, and a land.
It's to each his own, really. I mean, people have different choices that, of where they want to live. And so.
Tax revenue be more?
For a large house or for an apartment? Well, I mean, tax revenue may be more, but so is the service level costs that it costs to provide schools and so on and so forth for them. So it's, yes, you may get more tax revenue. I don't think anyone that approves new residences does it because they think it's a cash windfall. It does put a challenge on our resources, but when they are approved, they look at things like things like property rights, things like what's being developed around it to make those decisions. And I get it.
There's two sides to that.
Yeah.
You have, young people looking for places to live that can't afford a 5-acre, lot with a $400,000 house on it. They're looking for places they can afford. Right now, Effingham doesn't have a lot of that to offer. We need some towns. We need something in the way.
But that's not why we bought.
Yeah.
I understand that. We don't want to just do everybody else from the early years.
Yeah, they do.
Or maybe they do, maybe do, I don't know, maybe you don't. But we're trying to be, inclusive on the facts that, I feel like my kids are going to a great school.
Complex next to your house.
Somebody else maybe can only afford an apartment, their kids deserve to go to that same school, in my opinion. I think they should be allowed to do that and have something affordable. On the same token, those same teachers that are trying to move into our area can't afford your house. They need something smaller, something more affordable. A first-year teacher can't afford to move to Effingham County. And that's been stated over and over again.
And
We
sadly,
need-
they
we
can't
need
even afford to
something.
live in Bullock. I mean, Bullock, where it was farther out, more affordable, even that's getting ridiculous. And so it's just,
You have to balance
it's a tough
it with
situation.
something, I'm all, I grew up in the country, I love big lots and all that stuff, but, a lot of people just not their forte, can't afford it. I had to start out small, and other people do too.
But if you put that amount of housing too, you also need to compensate for, we're not a city seat. We
Sure.
don't have city officials, we don't have policemen that are just patrolling.
We're always increasing the sheriff's department, or they are.
Right,
They
but
don't have any.
we're unincorporated county.
It's hard to balance it, it really is, there's, like you said, there's property rights, there's legalities, there's only so much you can do or can't do. Just try to maintain some balance so everybody gets served in some way. You try to be fair as much as possible. Yes, ma'am.
This is just ignorance on my part. So you mentioned what the millage rate is on what it would be on my house, the millage rate. And then you mentioned that the warehouses in the special district would have an additional 1.1% millage rate. Is the millage rate for every kind of piece of property, or do warehouses pay a different one than I pay on my house?
What
or-
we can do, right, what the state can do, what the county can do is create what's called a special tax district. And if it's a contiguous piece of land, right, you can add an additional layer of millage on there, so long as that millage is spent in projects that support, within that district, right? And so that's what we're doing. So this way, there's, this thing, right? The way that we're hoping to pay for some of these roundabouts, and, some of these roads and some of this infrastructure, that connector road that goes in there, is with those dollars rather than the general tax dollars.
That's good, but that's not my question.
Okay.
My question is, I think 14.87 is the millage rate on a residential
That was
house?
on one of the slides.
For the school district. Yeah, so I think grand total, it's maybe like 25, somewhere around there.
Okay, so let's say I'm Darlene, I pay 25
Yeah.
millage rate on my property.
Mhm.
Does it matter what kind of property it is?
No, you pay the same millage rate, but it does matter where it is,
So-
right?
So
Yeah.
that warehouse is paying that same millage rate plus 1.1?
Yes, ma'am. Right.
It's not a vacant property, that's what you're asking.
I just didn't know. Just curious.
Well, you got one more?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I guess an idea that was kind of brought up by some on the planning board, I think, was, if we were gonna put townhomes and stuff and, have a lot more traffic and everything, kind of, you put those where they dump out on the state roads and then we don't have to maintain for all the extra traffic that it is, it's more up to the state as far as, handling.
Well, I think we are doing that for the most part, on apartments, right? Not townhomes. That we only put apartments on the commercial corridors, and what we call development nodes, which are generally at kind of larger corners, like Blue Jay and 17, let's say. So we are kind of looking at on the super high density stuff like apartments, just not townhouses.
Okay, cause I know like that Midland one, they're asking for a variance for an even smaller lot that's less than 1/7 of an acre for a house, and then they have townhomes also in there, so. So I know their new number that they have on their sketch plan or whatever, I guess, it's a lower number, but they're not actually saying, here, approve the sketch plan, they're saying, hey, can you approve this, this PD with I guess a variance, to where they probably could put 700 houses on there with that variance.
No, and I was at that meeting, and I will tell you that it was, I had a talk with the relevant services director. It was unnecessarily confusing, for folks. And so, the text that they put in there is the text that approved. and the number of homes that they put in there, they cannot exceed it without going through the entire process again. Going through the planning board for a vote and putting a sign out, going to the board of commissioners for a vote. So it isn't kind of a blank check.
That's what it sounded like.
It's exactly what it sounded like at the meeting, and I apologize for that, but told them that they definitely gotta do a little bit better job making it clear, what they're doing at the board of commissioners meeting.
All right, something else too, between the planning board and the commissioners and staff, by watching, you know, the meetings, what I see a lot of times is something comes before the planning board, and say the planning board denies it, it goes to commissioners, and staff is still recommending approval. Commissioners, for whatever reason, maybe you haven't found out, it's almost like you didn't get the information from the planning board why they denied it, and so you got staff recommending approval, even though your planning board recommended denied it, almost to the point that your planning board is almost irrelevant, because whatever they do really doesn't matter, it ends up coming to commissioners, and then they do whatever they want anyway. It's not saying one way or the other, but you have staff saying one thing, planning board saying one thing, whatever the case may be. The point of that planning board, staff shouldn't be, if planning board recommends denial, then staff should follow suit.
No, and I'll tell you, the difference is staff recommendation is always based on whether it's in compliance with zoning, right? And so regardless of what the, planning board says, that doesn't change, on their vote. So the staff's recommendation will stay, because nothing has changed. It's still compliant with all the zoning requirements, that it needed to be. So that's why we base our recommendation on. Planning board can then look at other external factors, and in all honesty, you cannot look at certain things. There has to be a legal basis for a denial, right? And so, you know, it can't be arbitrary, right? And so, and then, you know, we do try, when we make the recommendation, we'll say, planning board recommended denial, staff recommended approval. They will ask what was the basis for denial, and then, you know, they'll give them, you know, they'll try and do their best to try and explain what, if the planning board gave a basis.
Yeah,
It
and
seems
it's
like
not
exactly
clear. I'll
what you're
even
saying.
call the planning board representative who may have voted no or something like that. I've done that recently, just to find out
It
why.
just seems like what you're
why
saying is
that.
exactly how it should go, except it seems that only happens about 30% of the time when I watch.
Okay.
I just
I
watch.
mean, yeah, you
Yeah.
don't see the connection there, but there really is. I mean, we take those seriously and wanna make sure that, you know, what we're doing is legal for one.
So I've seen many times, like, well, why did the planning board even deny this, or, you know, and those are the questions, so it's like, there's a disconnect. I shouldn't say there's a disconnect, I'm just saying, if you have a board that reviews things, and they recommend something, okay, then there should be some teeth in what they do.
But there is, but we
do.
don't wanna rubber stamp things too. We wanna make sure we're vetting it on our own as well. It's our responsibility to do that each and every time. But planning board, what they do is not an approval, it's a recommendation. We vetted this, we looked at this, here's our recommendation, and it goes to the board of commissioners. So it's not an actual approval at that point, it is a recommendation. But we take it seriously. You know, and a lot of those guys are gifted and talented, and I respect them. So I will call them and ask them, you know, what their reasoning for no or yes in different scenarios.
I just like to suggest for future town hall meetings, I don't know, I know it's hard to do a mail out, you know, but not
Well, somebody else
everybody is
mentioned
on,
that earlier.
I know,
especially.
and so we
on
do
our
try and get it,
Facebook
well,
and everything. I didn't know
that-
anything about it. And-
That's the challenge
and
nowadays.
I know that sounds corny, and it's old. school.
But you're right, and we may have to go back to mail. We may have to go back to mail because, you know, nobody reads the paper. Yeah, nobody reads the paper anymore. Nobody, and if you're, you know, and, you know, we're not gonna go on, you know, we're legally not allowed to go on like TikTok, you know, so, you know, which a lot of, younger generations aren't on Facebook, you know, so older generations are on Facebook.
Yeah.
People my age aren't on Facebook, I'm old. And so it's more and more difficult to reach people.
For whatever district you're
Yeah.
gonna be in, for your.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a postcard
Yeah.
thingy.
The post office has this, I forget what it's called, but you print out so many, and get it done pretty cheap, actually,
Yeah,
and
it's
according to
cheapest version.
neighborhoods or
Cheapest way.
districts or something like that, but we'll look into that. It's
Just
just-
got on that very quick. Commissioners meeting has been changed for the Midland Swamp Development.
They may,
Oh,
Yeah.
that one's been canceled, yes, sir.
Okay, the sign has not been updated.
We just found out that we're not gonna have a quorum.
Literally the day of that planning board meeting, we found out we were not gonna have a quorum, so we had to push everything back. They will update the sign in time, well in time, and they will, repost and advertise everything.
Can we expedite that?
I'll make sure it's done tomorrow.
Because people have to make plans,
Yep.
and
And we don't want people showing up for a meeting that they thought was
So
gonna.
when is it, the 21st?
It is the 21st, but it should normally be the 9th.
Okay.
But we're not having,
people are gonna be in South Korea.
that is correct.
Which sign is that?
That's the, Midland 30.
Midland Swamp Development.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank y'all very much.
That's a great question.